Well, let's get more on this and speak to Kamran Bokhari from Washington, D.C., a senior fellow with the Center for Global Policy and fellow also with the program on extremism at George Washington University. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The local state governor, they're blaming India, but the Pakistani Taliban have said that they were behind this. To what degree are this group still posing a big threat to Pakistan?
The group called Jamaat al-Ahrar is still out there. It has suffered some blows in recent months and years, but clearly its capability to stage these horrendous attacks it still possesses that. And that's partly because of a lack of intelligence on the part of the Pakistani authorities as to the whereabouts of their various facilities where they groom suicide bombers and produce the improvised explosive devices used in these kind of attacks.
Of course, critics say that Pakistan is partly suffering now. The civilians of Pakistan are suffering because that country created the Taliban. It supported the Afghan Taliban. There are links with the so-called Pakistani Taliban, and a lot of these militant networks still being sheltered and protected somehow by the Pakistani government. What do you know about that? What information is there really about any of that?
Well, clearly Pakistan is suffering a blowback of years, decades of policy of using militant proxies to achieve realized strategic depth and for foreign policy purposes in the region. But I think that in recent years there's been a change in that, but a policy that's been pursued for decades is not going to go away all of a sudden. The outcome of that will continue to haunt the country for many years to come.
In what way specifically are any of these militant groups supported within Pakistan itself?
Well, clearly those who are fighting the Pakistani state are not being supported by the state itself. That would just not make sense. But the fact that they exist in Pakistan means that they have support from within what we would call civil society, a social support network that exists for them. Now, on the other hand, groups that are active in Afghanistan, particularly under the rubric of the Afghan Taliban or the Haqqani network, those still have some form of support from the Pakistani state. And of course, they've created their own social support networks as well, independent of Islamabad.
Some people will be looking at saying, why, were lawyers specifically targeted here? And what kind of reaction do you think these attacks form within the country?
So it's not really clear to me why they went after lawyers, but we have seen this modus operandi being used in the past, where an official, mostly it's been a police official in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, who was gunned down by the Taliban, and then they struck again at his funeral in the graveyard or at the home of the victim. So this modus operandi is not new. I suspect that they targeted the lawyers because they had the men and material in place to carry out this kind of carnage today. As far as the reaction, I think that over time, when a country like Pakistan, which has seen 70 to 80,000 people get killed in this jihadist insurgency, there is sort of a numbing effect. Unfortunately, it becomes part of the new normal, and people come to accept that there is a certain risk that they're going to have to live with, and this doesn't become news anymore. Yes, for those who get struck each time, it's a new thing, but overall, on a national level, there is an unfortunate sort of new normal that is accepted.
Do you think the government can do more? Specifically, what could it do? What about funding from outside countries to any of these groups, whether in Afghanistan or Pakistan, for example? Because, we are reporting these attacks so often.
Clearly, there's a lot that the Pakistani government can do. This is not to say that they've not done, a whole lot, thus far. They have. But it's mostly been in the form of military operations in North Waziristan and other parts of the country, such as Karachi and other urban areas. But clearly, the fact that these people continue to strike in this way suggests that, A, the Pakistanis do not have a handle on the intelligence on the financial networks that support this kind of enterprise, and of course the intelligence on the whereabouts of their key operatives, their facilities, the flow of material. Bomb-making material. So there's a lot that can be done.
We'll have to leave it there. Kamran Bokhari, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
To Syria now, where both